What are the key injury updates you need to know before the Week 9 Sunday, Monday games in the NFL for fantasy football? And who are our picks there for our FanDuel cash games, DraftKings tournaments, and our PrizePicks picks of the week? It's time to close the week with another show of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, but I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. One game in the books between the Eagles and Texans here in Week 9, but plenty more to go here in a very busy bye week. 12 more games here through Monday Night Football. We will give you the injury updates you need to know for those games, and we'll start looking at our DFS report here for the main slate on FanDuel and DraftKings, the targets you should look at based on price points there for your cash games and tournaments. And we'll also look at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is our sponsor here on DFS goodies, and we will break down the PrizePicks picks of the week. We'll close with that here on today's show as we close the week on Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We are free and available to you on all platforms. And I have to also tell you that this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, as you cover this season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. We did have the game last night. Pretty good for the Eagles side of things. Jalen Hurts didn't go off, but he gets a couple touchdown passes. One to Dallas Goedert, who had a big night with the receiving, more than 100 yards. So best game overall of the season for Dallas Goedert, working in that cover two. A.J. Brown, a little bit quieter, but still found the end zone there. And we had Miles Sanders on the ground provide the other action there. So good overall production. We also had Kenneth Gainwell in the mix more so than Boston Scott. So interesting developments there. We had Chris Moore and Philip Dorsett have pretty good games for the Texans with no Brandon Cooks for the personal reasons sitting out. We also had Nico Collins missing the game. So Davis Mills wasn't bad, a couple touchdowns, but only 154 yards passing. The story on the Texans side, a great performance without a touchdown, all rushing from Dameon Pierce in that game. So enough good RB2 production there for Pierce, and that's what we were looking for. Maybe we're looking for the Eagles to cover as well. Instead, it is 29-17. So we'll see how these games play out here. We have all these teams on bye, so only 12 more games left, and we do have injury updates for all those games. We'll get into those first, then we'll get into our FanDuel and DraftKings recommendations and put the spotlight on our PrizePicks picks of the week versus the projection. So all that here to close the week on Locked On Fantasy Football. All right, let's start our injury updates. At quarterback, Aaron Rodgers playing through that right thumb injury. He's had a pair of multiple touchdown games in a row, not high volume that you're looking for, but Rodgers should continue to light it up against the Lions this week. Matt Ryan, I know they said it wasn't because of the injury, but he's nowhere near playing with the right shoulder injury. Sam Ehlinger is going to be locked in that Patriots matchup, and he's supposed to start the rest of the season. We'll see how that plays out. If they struggle more offensively with Ehlinger, I wonder if they would make a pivot to Nick Foles. We'll see what the Colts are doing going forward. They have a bigger injury issue, however. We'll talk about that in a moment. Derek Carr going to go play through the back injury. I think he's okay to play, but is he okay to play well? It's a big question mark here. Total clunker against the Saints. Couldn't even muster 150 yards passing. Really was awful. You had Jared Stidham come off the bench in mop-up time, and he did more than Derek Carr when he was in there. So Carr has a very big game here, a prove-it game against the Jaguars. Really not a good spot for him last week where the Saints defense had some injuries that they could exploit. The Ravens, and look at them this week, I think you'll see that the Saints aren't as good as a passing team defensively as we think. So Carr this week against the Jaguars, he has to bounce back. It's a weaker defense. We'll see. It's still on the road this week. I know a lot of Raiders fans will probably travel out there to Jacksonville, but Carr has a lot to prove playing through that injury in week number 9. Ryan Tannehill is very iffy to play. The ankle injury got the limited practice there on Wednesday, did not practice yesterday. So Malik Willis could be on tap here. That could change the whole course of this game. For the Titans, I think no matter what, it's a Derrick Henry heavy game. And maybe a little Dontrell Hilliard based on the game script there in Kansas City with the Chiefs coming off a bye. James Conner, we'll see if he can go. 2 limited practices with a rib injury here that has kept him out for 3 games now. Eno Benjamin would be in line to carry the load here. We don't have Darrell Williams either. He's on the IR now with a hip injury. So, Benjamin could be headed to a big role with Keontae Ingram, the rookie, behind him again this week, like we saw a few weeks ago. Gus Edwards, probably not going to play. That's all the indications of that with a hamstring injury. So he's out here for the Ravens. So more of the Kenyon Drake experience is going to happen against New Orleans on Monday night. We won't get an official designation until later in the week, Saturday, but Gus Edwards is not going to play, folks. Chuba Hubbard should return this week. 2 limited practices for the Panthers, missed last week. So Dr. Foreman will have to share a little bit. I still think Foreman is going to get the majority of carries, touches against the Bengals this week. Samaje Perine is good to go. We'll see if the Bengals go a little run heavier with Joe Mixon and Perine that they should have done against the Browns. I think they need to do that against the Panthers to win the game. DeAndre Swift, a little bit of concern that he missed Wednesday's practice, but limited session there. He should be good to go for the Packers game. Jonathan Taylor, the ankle injury, very worrisome. He aggravated it against the Commanders, has missed 2 practices. So Deion Jackson, now with Nyheim Hines traded to the Bills, in line for a big role. We know what Jackson did the first time playing for Taylor. He just went off totally as a rusher and receiver. So Deion Jackson might be the guy again there. So hopefully you're able to pick him up in some leagues or had him stashed on the bench from the first time with Taylor. But Taylor, I would really hold my breath here. If he gets a limited session, maybe he has a chance to play against the Patriots this week. Jerick McKinnon, shoulder injury, he's good to go for the Chiefs. Austin Eckler popped up on the injury report on Thursday at abdomen. I think it's a little bit of a pain management rest issue. He should be good to go here against the Falcons in a very good matchup. Cam Akers back in action all of a sudden in practice. He was sitting out things, but they kept him during the trade deadline. So we'll see what happens with him, Darrell Henderson Jr., and Kyren Williams. This might give them an opportunity to not rush back Kyren Williams with the IR window opened here for the rookie out of Notre Dame. And that means you can't really trust any Rams running back if Akers is back in the mix in that tough matchup against the Buccaneers on the road. David Harris, 2 missed practices with an illness. We're not sure exactly what's up with that, but definitely Ramondre Stevenson is locked in as an RB2 no matter what, with some real upside as an RB1. So Harris, I think, will play through the illness. We'll see. It's usually not an issue there, so we'll follow that for sure. However, and Stevenson would get a bumps up in DFS if that's the case. Mark Ingram, that is, he is not going to play probably for the Saints with a knee injury. Derrick Henry popped up with a foot issue. He was limited on Wednesday, but just rested yesterday from practice. So that definitely says he's good to go for the Chiefs. They're managing him a little bit in practice. Rashad Bateman, big blow news there yesterday that he is out for the season with a Liz Frankish type injury. So he's done. Tough year for Rashad Bateman with the foot. Came back, didn't look right against the Buccaneers, and now he's down for the season. So Devin Duvernay will go forward as the number 1 wide receiver for the Ravens this season without any pickups during the trade deadline. Jamar Chase going to miss another game for the Bengals, so a lot of T against Tyler Boyd in that matchup against the Panthers. Josh Reynolds, the back, kind of maybe tightened up on him a little bit where he didn't practice there. So he may not be out there against the Packers. We'll watch that. They need him with no TJ Hawkinson anymore, but Khalif Raymond, watch out for him maybe being a dart throw, big play guy playing off Amon-Ra St. Brown while Jameson Williams is still on the mend here. Al Lazard, 2 limited practice with the shoulder. He feels confident that he'll play this week. So does Coach Matt LaFleur. Great matchup against the Lions. And Christian Watson also might be available with a concussion. He got a limited practice. We'll see if he gets cleared on Friday. Jamal Agnew is going to be out there for the Jaguars, another weapon for Trevor Lawrence in that matchup for the Raiders. Mecole Hardman, heel injury, but coming off the big game before the bye against the 49ers, he's going to play against the Titans. Devontae Adams' illness had clearly affected him last week. He's feeling a little bit better going in full in practice this week, so should be a bounce-back game against those Jaguars cornerbacks this week. Matt Collins will also play through his heel injury. We're trying to keep producing at that one. Keenan Allen doesn't look good with the hamstring injury. Another day of missed practices, and he just doesn't feel good. He's admitted that he said the injury was worse after the bye. So not counting on Keenan Allen. We're definitely not counting on Mike Williams. He's out here with an ankle injury for multiple weeks. Josh Palmer going to return from the concussion and play this week in a key role with DeAndre Carter for the Chargers. Cooper Kupp, ankle injury was concerning that he sat out Wednesday's practice, but a limited session on Thursday. Says he's going to be good to go in that game against the Buccaneers after he tortured them in the playoffs. It's a big play. Van Jefferson should play through his knee injury, being limited in practice. Jalen Waddle, no issues with the shoulder, now practicing in full, and he's going to be good to go for another big game against the Bears. Adam Thielen, a little bit of scare last week, and knee bruise only. He's going to play against the Commanders, full practice there. Devontae Parker, don't count on him. He has a knee injury, pretty significant, not playing against the Colts. Michael Thomas is expected to miss the rest of the season with a foot/toe injury. He is having surgery. He's been put on injured reserve. Dennis Allen, the coach, says he's probably done here, so that's it. And Jarvis Landry, however, was limited with his ankle injury and has a chance to return this week at the same time Thomas is down for the season and shut down. Corey Davis is not going to play with 2 missed practices with a knee injury for the Jets. DK Metcalf, good to go to the knee after surprising everyone and going pretty good last week against the Giants. So he's good. Tyler Lockett, hamstring and ribs, both of them are full practice. They're fine here. And a good matchup against Marco Wilson and Byron Murphy Jr. Marquise Goodwin didn't practice, so he's probably going to miss the game with a growing injury, so that helps Lockett and Metcalf's value. Penny Hart could return the hamstring injury. You look at Mike Evans, ankle injury there, but he should be good to go for the Rams. Russell Gage probably going to miss the game. Another one with a hamstring injury. Julio Jones will be available with his knee injury. John Dotson hasn't played in a while, hamstring, so out again probably against the Vikings with 2 more missed practices. At tight ends, knee and shoulder injury for Mark Andrews is concerning. 1 missed practice already. We'll see what happens there the next couple days. He could still go against the Saints for sure, as the coaches don't seem too concerned about Mark Andrews' value, but Isaiah Likely would be the plug-and-play should Andrews miss the game. We also have Brock Wright in the concussion protocol. Why he's relevant now is that he's the Lions' replacement for TJ Hawkinson, so probably not out there against the Packers. Darren Waller, we'll have to see how that hamstring responds, see if he can play against the Jaguars. Speaking of hamstring, Donald Parham was coming back from a concussion for the Chargers, but tweaked something there in practice on Thursday. So a little bit concerned that Parham won't be out there, but that would help Gerald Everett in that matchup against Atlanta. Adam Troutman should have a chance to return with an ankle injury, so that complicates things against the Ravens. CJ Uzama is going to be out there, probably with a shoulder injury for the Jets against the Bills. Noah Fant, hamstring injury. We'll see if he plays through it against the Cardinals. There's a good matchup for tight ends if he can get out there with Will Dissly. Cameron Brate, 2 limited practices with a neck injury. We'll see if he can go this week. Logan Thomas has a good chance to return, but I don't know what you're going to get from him. And Cole Turner might be taking over here. He's practicing in full, the rookie with a concussion. He should return, the very talented rookie out of Nevada. So you might be a changing of the guard at tight end here in Washington. A kicker, don't count on Dustin Hopkins. 2 missed practices there. I know he's kicking indoors in Atlanta for a high-powered Chargers offense. Cameron Dicker has been looking really good as a replacement, so expecting Dicker to fill in again there if you're trying to attach yourself to the Chargers kicker. Now, notable other injuries, the Cardinals offensive line really beat up going into Seattle. Left tackle DJ Humphries, as well as Max Garcia and Rodney Hudson, so they could be missing some guys. The Colts left tackle Dennis Kelly has missed 2 practices. It's been a revolving door for them. That's not good for their pass protection or run blocking in that matchup against the Patriots. There are a couple injuries to the tackles of the Dolphins. They should both play there, Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson. So something to keep in mind there if the pass protection breaks down a little bit against the Bears. So those are the ones to watch out for. Defensively, one that I'm tracking is Dalvin Tomlinson of the Vikings. That could help Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson Jr., that Commanders running game. If Big Dalvin is not in there, Jeffrey Simmons will try to go for the Titans. If he doesn't go, that's going to help the Chiefs running game this week. The Bills have a real concern with Matt Milano being injured. That might help Tyler Conklin in the running game out of the backfield if Milano can't go. He's a very good cover linebacker there. The Packers, maybe without Devondre Campbell, it's already a weakened run defense, so Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift can have a nice game there in that matchup. So those are the concerns there defensively that we're tracking most. On a side note, I think the Commanders also are in trouble because their linebackers Cole Holcomb and David Mayo look like they can miss games. Here, Holcomb did not play last week. Mayo has a hamstring injury, so that should help Dalvin Cook in that matchup this week against the Vikings. Chidobe Awuzie, we talked about him going down here for the Bengals. Eli Apple should return, but Mike Hilton and Trey Flowers are also banged up. So this opens up opportunities for Terrace Marshall Jr. and DJ Moore in that matchup in garbage time, possibly with high volume for the Panthers this week. Speaking of the Panthers, J.C. Horn and Dante Jackson a little bit banged up, so that's good news here. On top of Miles Hartsfield in the slot, that you'll get good production from T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd once again this week. So there you go. There you have the key offensive injuries and the defensive ones that we want to track here ahead of week number 9 Sunday and Monday games in fantasy football. We do have to get into our DraftKings and FanDuel picks. We'll have that next, as well as our PrizePicks projections. We'll get to those in our final segment here on the Friday of Locked On Fantasy Football. Before we do that, I've got to tell you about an exciting new sponsor for sure. They are Prediction Strike, and this is an interesting concept that you have. It's a really kind of stock market for players, and it's very unique. It's a little bit different from daily fantasy and those type of skill sets for sure. You're just investing in players, and you can do that. Just take Jalen Hurts, for example. If you invest in Jalen Hurts, you'll be up 48.2%. The world's first sports stock market. You can now invest in professional athletes just like stocks with low risk alternative to sports betting, and athlete prices move based on performance and supply and demand. So Hurts has been outstanding this year. He's in the MVP conversation. Was pretty good in fantasy. In reality, last year took it to a whole nother level in the passing game. So that's the kind of return you can look at if you're investing in the right player. All athletes benefit too are entitled to a percentage of their market cap. Unlike sports betting companies, 2.5% trade fees was lowest in real money sports. You can invest in 4 sports, not just NFL, but UFC, NBA, and MLB. Everyone knows you should be investing, but why not invest in what you actually know as a football fanatic? That's only at Prediction Strike. Download the Prediction Strike app and use the code LOCKED for a free share when you sign up and make a first deposit of $20 or more. You can check it out right there on your screen on YouTube. The promo code is LOCKED, just LOCKED, there that you can use at Prediction Strike to get in on the action. That's the promo code LOCKED for a special one-time giveaway there with the special there that comes with the first-time deposit of $20 more. Prediction Strike will choose one person who signs up with the code LOCKED and makes a deposit to win 100 free random shares. That could be worth up to $3,000 if you get lucky and receive Josh Allen shares. Invest in what you know on Prediction Strike, the stock market for sports. All right, we also have to give you more about another exciting sponsor we've had for a long time here. That is Built Bar here. Okay, we're paused for give you this important information from Built Bar. Great, you got to try this. I'm talking about Built Bar's new reimagined flavors: cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, and coconut brownie topper, white chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on the granola bar, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. Candy cane brownie puff. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. First off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built. They're revolutionizing nutrition, as we know, 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, chocolate and glow sugar and calories, only 130 calories. Just sink your teeth in that first bite, and it'll change your life forever. I'm not kidding. There will be a time before you've tried these new Built flavors and the magical, wonderful time afterwards. You're probably wondering which new flavor is my favorite. That's an unanswerable question, to say the least. All those new flavors, they're all outstanding. They're all unbelievable. They're all different. So you can order a mix box and try all of the 5 flavors for yourself. Built, you got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. 15% off your order right now. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15, all caps locked on. The number's 15 at Built.com. All right, we'll continue the show in a moment as we look at our FanDuel and DraftKings picks here for cash games and tournaments this week. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For a second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insight only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, just like Locked On Fantasy Football. All right, let's get into our recommendations here for FanDuel and DraftKings. So for cash games on FanDuel, and really the double in tournaments too, these are guys I like in general. At the price point, Kirk Cousins' revenge game against the Commanders, 7,900. He's going to be fired up for this one. The Commanders also stink in their pass defense without William Jackson now as well. So Cousins should absolutely light these guys up with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and his new weapon. Yep, his new weapon, TJ Hawkinson. So they're going to get some action there. Dalvin Cook will play close in this one. So the old pass to score, run to win is going to happen here. So 7,900 on FanDuel for Kirk Cousins, targeting him. That's my first entry point here on the main slate. I'm also looking at Justin Herbert, $100 cheaper at 7,800. A lot of negative buzz about Herbert, a lot of forgotten stuff about Herbert being there on the bye last week. But when you look at it, the numbers are set up to be big, even without Keenan Allen and one Mike Williams. So that could fade a little off Justin Herbert this week. So 7,800, like that price quite a bit. In tournaments, that also makes him appealing on DraftKings, 7,200 for Justin Herbert. Again, he has Joshua Palmer. He has DeAndre Carter. He's got his tight ends. He's got Eckler. There's plenty of weapons out there. So I feel pretty confident that Herbert is going to have a big game. And also for himself, getting that week off to finally heal and rest that ribs injury, I think he's going to come back really strong here the rest of the way. The numbers support. Just the big fantasy numbers are missing, but everything, the process to get there are still out there for Justin Herbert, minus maybe stretching the field the same way without Rashawn Slater locking down left tackle to buy more time. Justin Fields, tournament pick, very cheap, 5,300. He's almost down there with PJ Walker. He's been on fire of late here, so I think he'll have a nice game running and throwing against the Dolphins at home this week. So Herbert, either way you can go, but go Cousins and cash games there on FanDuel and Fields on DraftKings tournaments this week. On FanDuel, running back, love the price point again for Aaron Jones. 2 weeks ago, he really came through against the Commanders. So going back to that, well, I didn't like him last week against the Bills. He wasn't even available on the main slate, but I wouldn't have played him in the showdown against Buffalo. This week, I think he'll get more volume, and this Lions team cannot stop the run and pass equally there. And so Jones is a good, complete all-around game for him for 7,800 on FanDuel. Like that price. I also like similar type of player, Travis Etienne. We saw what Alvin Kamara did to the Raiders defense. Etienne is a very similar player, 7,600 for him. On DraftKings, Aaron Jones is well priced, a little bit more in relation to the field at 7,400, but I still like him there. Travis Etienne, a little cheaper at 7,300. In between both of them, Josh Jacobs at 74. He has a chance to rebound against the Jaguars' struggling run defense there this week. So something to look at is people might be fading Jacobs after he disappointed against the Saints big time in week number 8. You have A.J. Dillon as well. That's a good alternative, a tournament to play there at 5,700 in relation to Jones. You could also think about playing both of them in cash games because I think it's going to be a run-heavy type situation for the Packers to try to get a win in Detroit this week. At wide receiver for the games that we're looking at, definitely Terry McLaurin is the guy I like, 7,200 on FanDuel. He's failing with Taylor Heineke. The numbers have been there. The Viking secondary is still pretty vulnerable. McLaurin has pretty good speed here. We know that we have Patrick Peterson fading, Cameron Dantzler playing through an injury this week. So Terry McLaurin looks really good at 7,200. Going a little cheaper, I like Tyler Boyd at 6,900. Here, he's just going to come through for you in the slot. This is where the Panthers struggle the most, so like that. Another slot receiver I like is Christian Kirk at 6,300. He can do a lot of damage there as well, working the slot. No Nate Hobbs in coverage for the Raiders. We talked about that. So Kirk and Boyd, very similar receivers, and they have a chance to produce big time this week. Tyler Lockett used to be a dedicated slot guy. You're going to have to pay up to 7,600 to get him on FanDuel here. But the matchup is good. You'll probably get Marco Wilson, DK Metcalf, still not a bad value at 7,400 with Byron Murphy on the other side. By the numbers, the Cardinals are pretty good on the number one outside receivers, but they struggled in number two. So Lockett maybe at $200 more is better than Metcalf. But again, I think they're more interchangeable with the way they use them. So Metcalf being $200 cheaper, I think either way you want a piece of that the Seahawks passing game this week. And of course, Josh Palmer at 6,200. It's a free space that you can take, stashing him with Herbert this week as the default number one receiver. On DraftKings, I like the prices for Lockett and Boyd as well, 6,100 each there. That's a very good spot. Al Lazard at 6,000 looks like he's going to play through shoulder injury, so you feel good about that he's going to score a touchdown, put up some good yardage in a good coverage matchup. Christian Kirk drops down to 5,500, so really like Kirk there at that price on DraftKings with the more volume there. And we have Josh Palmer at 5,100, so you get drops quite a bit in relation to field there. So Palmer is a good value there. I also like Gabe Davis in tournament 6,900 because he's a big play guy and he's a little bit touchdown and long pass dependent here, but the Jets can give up that to Gabe Davis at 69 and Darnell Mooney at 4,700. I'm really feeling he's going to make a big play against the Dolphins and score this week. So taking that, and I think you can get it down a little bit, but 4,700 is super cheap here for Darnell Mooney. At tight end, there's only one name I'm looking at. It's Zach Ertz at 6,600. It is somewhat expensive on FanDuel, but in relation to the other tight ends, it's not bad. And the big picture of your salary cap, it isn't. So I want to go for the safest bet on the board. He's playing the Seahawks here. They give up a lot to the tight end. They're really good on the quarterback. So Zach Ertz, 6,600 on FanDuel, 5,100 DraftKings. And we have the Jaguars defense as someone to look at as well. You have 3,800 for them on FanDuel. The way to go on the other site is looking at the Seahawks. They're super cheap at 2,500. So look at the Jaguars either way. Jaguars or Seahawks are the defenses I'm targeting this week in DFS because they're cheap and undervalued at a price, and I think they'll put up more points than are expected this week in daily fantasy football. So there you have it. There's a breakdown of the targets for FanDuel and DraftKings, whether you're playing cash games or tournaments. Those are guys to look at. When I talk about FanDuel, it's more cash game related. DraftKings, I lean a little bit more tournaments with the style of games I'm picking on either site. All right, so there you have that. We will close the show with more DFS talk with our PrizePicks picks of the week. We have 5 that we really like this week, and hint, they're related to some of the DFS recommendations we just made. So it's all correlated. If you're believing something, you got to go all the way in on it and try to find different ways to win on it. And that's what we're going to do with the PrizePicks. These days, every potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you, as you see on the YouTube screen there, to get in on it right now. With the LinkedIn Jobs, you're going to find the best possible candidates to make yourself have a winning team. That's why you have to check in LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. We do that at Locked On. We do that at Sporting News. We're trying to find the right mix of team players, and LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you with your business do that as well. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word they're trying. It's so easy to create a job. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1, delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, it is time to close the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football, breaking down our picks of the week. We told you how much we like Justin Herbert. This Falcons defense is just hemorrhaging passing yardage to the other team. 4 last passers have passed this number easily. He's going to come out flinging. The secondary is beat up with A.J. Terrell, likely to miss another game here. So 280.5, that's a number that 4 quarterbacks have cleared in consecutive games against the Falcons, including P.J. Walker. So feelings with Justin Herbert. I think you'll also get some resistance from the Falcons where they won't totally disappear in this game. That's going to keep Herbert passing here. So 280.5, we're going over that PrizePicks projection for Justin Herbert. In the running game, we're looking at Aaron Jones, 65.5 rushing yards. We're taking the over on that one for sure. I think he's going to be involved heavily with A.J. Dillon this week. Justin Fields, 49.5 rushing yards. The Dolphins do give up quite a bit rushing to mobile quarterbacks. We've seen it, and they gave more than 110 yards to Lamar Jackson. So feeling that with 49.5, a low number to me for Justin Fields. So Aaron Jones, and Justin Fields are my rushing guys. They're 65.5 and 49.5, respectively, yards going above those totals. Travis Etienne in a little sneaky projection. No, it's not his rushing yardage total, but Raiders really struggle to cover backs the backfield with their linebackers. We saw that against, again, the Alvin Kamara is kind of the Travis Etienne senior in this scenario, 21.5 receiving. So I really like that for Travis Etienne to go above that. And Tyler Boyd, great matchup again in the slot with Miles Hartsfield. He's going to miss J.C. Horn, who might be locked up more on T. Higgins this week. So I like that quite a bit. It's 61.5 taken there. So Justin Herbert, 280.5 above that. Aaron Jones, 60.5 with rushing above that. Justin Fields, 49.5 rushing. Travis Etienne, 21.5 receiving. And Tyler Boyd, 61.5. So we're keeping it real with our kind of DFS in terms of if we like players here, we like them here. And that's how you kind of have to approach it. And with PrizePicks, you always want to look deeper and to find some interesting ones that are offbeat. Again, I love the ones that are tied with runners as receivers and as tied with quarterbacks as rushers. And we have a couple of those with Field and Etienne in our mix this week on Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, for this week, breaking down week 9, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck in all your contests this week, whether they're seasonal matchups, DFS. Go win, prosper, and we'll see you there on Monday to break it all down for you here on Locked On Fantasy Football.